From district to district, moving through the waters to Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. Your station, your voice. All things Cayman. One radio, many people. This is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Cayman Pharmacy Group, with a location in West Bay and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The Cayman Pharmacy Group has a location for you just around the corner. Seaboard Marine, with over 35 shipping ports, find your shipping solution by calling 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com for competitive rates. Rotary Central, for more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects. Fidelity Bank, for all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you. And Roper's Janitorial, complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential. They get the job done right every time.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the Record.
For the Record. For the Record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. For the Record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the Record.
For the Record. For the Record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome to For the Record. Today is Wednesday, the 26th day of June 2019. I trust that everyone had an enjoyable evening. Those of you who live in the Georgetown area, and I'm not sure about West Bay, but you would have received some blessings yesterday in the form of rain. Unfortunately, some areas in the Eastern District, Savannah, Pedro area, no rain at all, none whatsoever, and we need it so badly there. But we're certainly happy for those of you who were fortunate enough to get some precipitation in your area. For those of you who are on the roads of the Cayman Islands, we again urge you to observe the rules of the road, be extremely careful. Remember that the life you save may be your own. And if you're on the roads of the Cayman Islands this morning, you also may have noticed the more efficient movement of traffic on the roads as well. I believe most, if not all, schools are out now. And, of course, when that occurs, we see a huge difference in the traffic, the amount of traffic on our roads as well, which basically says to us, if you want to reduce the traffic on the roads as far as the transportation of school children is concerned, maybe we need to take a further look at that to see what can be provided in the form of more transportation for not just maybe government schools, but other schools as well. Maybe some sort of subsidized system where bus passes, if you had a public transport system, bus passes are provided free to students for them to travel on there, but something that we seriously need to look at if we are serious about reducing the congestion on the roads as well as reducing the number of vehicles on the road as well. Folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman and by extension For the Record into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. As you know, For the Record is a show produced by the staff and management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I'm your host, Orrett Connor, and you're welcome to join me every Monday, Wednesday, and and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. Our phone lines are always open. There is always someone there waiting to take your calls. Usually it's going to be that beautiful radio voice of Miss Susan Watson. You can call us on our toll-free number provided courtesy of Flo. That toll-free number is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and the 949-6990. If you don't like to talk on the telephone, you can email us at For The Record. That is one word, For The Record, at CANDW.KY. WhatsApp us on 925-3261, where we encourage you to send us a text message or leave us a voice note, the contents of which will be played during the course of the show. And, of course, you can follow us on YouTube simply by subscribing to Radio Cayman live stream. It is my pleasure to have in the studio with me this morning none other than Dr. Steve McFeel. Miss Teresa is unavailable this morning, so we have Dr. McFeel in the studio. We're going to continue, amongst other things, the discussion on the constitutional talks held in the Cayman Islands and in London in 2008, 2009 in relation to the current constitution that we now have. We want to concentrate on advisory district councils, the discussions on those councils, as well as we want to see what was said about the implementation and the formation of a commission for standards in public life. This will give you an opportunity to hear what some of your representatives had to say in relation to these two issues, and you will also get an opportunity to decide on your own, based on their words then and their position and actions now, whether the two are consistent or whether or not some persons have changed their minds about the type of representation that you want to have in advisory district councils now that they are in control. So without any further ado, I want to say good morning, Doc. Welcome back to For The Record.
Good morning to you, Mr. For The Record, and it's nice to be here with you on Wednesday morning. And I see that you have given me copies of the Cayman Times.
Yes.
Of 1956. And it's very interesting to go back to see, refresh our memories to some of the things that happened then.
Mm-hmm. Well, why don't you share some of those with our audience?
Yes, one of the things that is very outstanding, that to me, is that the population then was less than 7,000 people.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
7,000 people, and in charge of the country was a great commissioner named Andrew M. Gerard, Andrew Morris Gerard. Mm-hmm. And he was a commissioner, and I see here on the front page that he is saying goodbye to Dr. Holness, Dr. Mavis Holness of Jamaica. She was here as a medical doctor. In those days, Jamaica was second medical doctors, professional people to Cayman because we were dependency of them. And he's bidding her goodbye. And as we said, as you were saying, before we came onto the show, we wonder if she was a family to Prime Minister Holness,
the current Prime Minister.
Holness. Yeah. I wonder. I would like to see if she was. She would be older now because she probably was in her 30s then, in 1956. Yes. And the other thing that I notice here is that of the people who were prominent in those days, she got many gifts from Captain and Mrs. Charles Hofelt, Mr. and Mrs. Roy Watler, Mr. and Mrs. Conrad Hilton, that Mrs. Joy Hilton and Conrad Hilton, Mistress and Mistress Otto Hurlston, and Mr. Desmond Watler, and Mr. and Mistress Haig, and Captain Mac Thompson, and members of the hospital staff. Now, Captain Mac Thompson, you remember him? Captain Macpherson Thompson. Captain Mac Thompson was the gentleman who owned the gas station. The only two gas pumps in the island. There was one at Mr. Ingsley's.
Ingsley's, yes.
And there
down
was
on
one
North Church Street.
North Church Street, and there was one right across from Mrs. Francis' house, right where the dock is right now.
Right, yes.
And Louis Ebanks. Sunbeam was the first one that was operating that station.
Okay.
And after Sunbeam went into the taxi business full time.
Now, Sunbeam was a Thompson, so she would have been the daughter of Mac Thompson?
No,
or
she was
relation?
Mac Thompson, remember, lived in Crew Road.
Oh, yes.
Mac Thompson was the uncle of Wilford Ryan.
Right. So on Ryan Road, there was a gas station right there on the corner as well.
There was a little gas station right there on the corner as well, a little gas bottle.
It's called them filling station those days.
Call them filling stations, yes. And after Sunbeam went into the taxi business full time, Louis Ebanks took the station over.
Okay.
And that's where we would hang out as teenagers because Louis was our scoutmaster. And we would hang out there after school, and myself and Woodrow Smith and Edmund Seymour and Edmund Seymour and a whole lot of us would hang out there. Because
let's get that mic a little closer to you there.
Edmund Seymour and Woodrow Smith, and we would hang out there and talk about not about politics, but about history and about school, because Woodrow was a man well learned, and we would argue about words sometime for 2 weeks.
Yes.
He
was a walking vocabulary.
Yes. And it's funny because there's a story about Gerard. Around this time, where the Legislative Assembly building is now is a park. I think it was called Princess Alice Park.
Princess Royal Park.
And we used to play baseball there. And mostly on Saturdays, it used to be the Surrey Bush boys against the Northward boys.
Okay.
The captain of our team, I think, was a guy called, he was from Cuba. He was married to a woman called Rachel Seymour. I can't remember his name now. But... And it was Del Seymour.
Oh, okay. Dorrell.
Yes.
Dorrell Forbes.
Yes.
From Honduras.
Yes.
From Honduras.
Yes. And
Clarence would say Uncle Dorrell.
Yes.
Clarence in New York, his uncle.
Yes. And a lot of the boys from North were Rudy Hines, George Hines, Maureen Parsons, Gaylord Parsons, the Madison brothers. And all of those. And it was a big thing.
And Gaylord was the brother of Miss Ardis Smith.
That's right. Yes, that's right. And we would play, but we had to be good to be on that team. So we were sitting out there under the old, there's a plum tree there too. And a big, huge almond tree.
Almond tree, right close to Mr. William
Nixon shop.
Yes.
And William Nixon used to sell buns on that day especially. And we were sitting there that day, and there comes Mr. Gerard. Now, Boy D. Bird, Harwell Bird, which was Leon Bird's son, he was also a good baseball player. He was in a game. So he used to graze a donkey for Uncle Sam Miles.
Okay.
Now, Uncle Sam Miles was one of these men we used to call them the sophisticated colored people.
Okay.
They had gone to America and all those places on the turn of the century, and they came back with their beautiful clothes and the pianos and their beautiful homes and things like that. And they were like the upper class black people in those days. And so Boy D had the duty to graze Mr. Samuel's donkey, and he was playing the baseball, so he decided to take it down to the field with him and tie it onto the plum tree. And let it graze across the road, which was Anita Parsons' property across the road. So the donkey stretched across the road with a rope, and Gerard comes up in his big car with a big emblem on it, and he couldn't get across the road because the donkey rope was across the road. So he came over to us and said, "Who's this animal belong to?" So we said, "Boy, he's taking care of him." So he said, "Who's this Boy D?" So we said, "He's playing ball, sir." So he said, "You go and fetch him." So we went and we brought Boy D, and he says, "I want you to move this animal." So Boy D said, he said, so he said, who this animal belong to? So Boyd, he said, belong to Uncle Sam. So, boy, Uncle Sam Miles. So Andrew Gerard thought that he would talk about the Uncle Sam of the United States. But he said, I don't care if it belonged to Uncle Sam or the King. I want to the Queen. I want you to move this animal. So we all went and started to pull the rope of the donkey. When a donkey is eating and shuffling down his good grass and his new grass, you can't
stubborn.
You can't get his head around. And we were pulling and we couldn't get the donkey turned around. And Gerard said, move. And he went and he started pulling the rope. And he started pulling the rope, and his hand started slipping on the rope, and he kept slipping further and further down to the back of the donkey. And the donkey let out one piles of, you know what?
You're right.
Gerard shoes. Gerard took off one shoe and pelted at the donkey, missed him. And he took off the next one and pelted at the donkey and missed him again. And he jumped in his car, and he turned around by William Nixon shop, and he went down by the old fort, by Dobson Hall, and he turned left and went up. And we were laughing at Gerard, but that wasn't the end of it. When we looked, we saw. We're
going to take a commercial break, and we're going to have you give the end of that story after this commercial break. Folks, please stay tuned. Some storytelling here with Dr. Steve Macfield. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
The Cayman Islands boasts of a long, colorful, and rich history. In tribute to our roots, Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands, is pleased to bring you the Historical Vignette Series, sponsored by Cayman National Bank. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs. The Cayman Islands, he hath founded it upon the seas.
As Caymanian turtlers developed a unique maritime folklore based on trade, crews swapped stories about famous catches and adventures. One such story, relayed by famous Caymanian Captain Ali Ebanks of West Bay, took place in 1942. Captain Ali, while working on the turtling grounds northeast of Mosquito Key, came across a man in a catboat full of green turtles. The man was seeking assistance in shipping 5 of his best turtles home for his family. As was customary, the 5 turtles were marked for identification and loaded onto the schooner Lydia E. Wilson for a shipment back to Grand Cayman, where they were placed in a crawl to await the man's return home. However, a storm struck the shoreline, and the turtles were washed back out to sea. 12 days after the storm began, the same man approached Captain Ali, concerned about the welfare of the schooner Lydia E. Wilson. The man just that morning had caught one of the very same turtles that a few weeks prior had been shipped to Grand Cayman. Across Mosquito Key, the fishermen grew worried about the fate of the Lydia E. Wilson until a schooner sailed through one morning and confirmed that she was in fact safe at the anchor in West Bay, and explained the flooded crawl and the lost turtles. It was finally concluded that the green turtle, once free from the crawl in Grand Cayman, had swam 400 miles across the Caribbean Sea in only 12 days, right back to the very same rock he had been caught the first time.
Information from this historical vignette was sourced from the Maritime Heritage of the Cayman Islands by Roger C. Smith.
Radio Cayman's historical facts vignettes are proudly brought to you by Cayman National, with branches on all 3 Cayman Islands. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs.
When you need stability, think Business of the Year.
Considering a new career opportunity, think Best Place to Work.
When dependability matters, think Outstanding Workforce.
In need of a reliable financial partner, think Bank of the Year.
When you seek excellence, think Cayman National.
No matter how many accomplishments we achieve, we always set the bar higher. That's why we are the most awarded bank in Cayman, and we are proud to be your
2018 Bank of the Year.
They say cleaning your house never killed anyone, but why take chances? Spend your time doing what you love and leave the rest to Roper's Janitorial. Complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential with 24-hour emergency service. Roper's Janitorial, 949-2511. Email janitorial@ropers.ky. Take back your life and get the job done right the first time. Roper's Janitorial, 949-2511.
I remember playing at 7 Mile Beach as a boy, eating mango by the sea, learning how to snorkel. My mother, she worked so hard to provide for our family so that we could have those moments. Seeing her age has been tough. A strong, capable woman, now in need of daily support, it's my time to be strong for her.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy understands the importance of the careful decisions you make every day for your family. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care, so you can feel confident in knowing that your family is safe with the right medication. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we take care of your health.
Wow, it seems I buy a battery every year.
Oh, for real? You should buy your car battery from Vantman. Their batteries are tough. I have a 3-year warranty on mine.
Oh, I know that trick. I take it back and they charge me a percentage of the price.
Hear me out, bro. Not at Vamp Bobo. You can get a 3-year full warranty, no charge. And if they install it at Vamp, it includes free towing and jumping service. And let me tell you, you will never have to get your hands dirty changing no battery.
Get Motorcraft Max or Plus battery for 20% off when it's installed by the service department at Vamp Motors on Walker's Road. Now that's a deal you can get charged up about. Vamp Motors, keeping you on the road.
Extended through June.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on insuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard. Congratulations, it's a boy.
During the greatest events of your life, whether or not you have the right health insurance coverage should be the last thing on your mind. That's why at Fidelity Health, we are committed to helping you get matched with the right plan to suit you and your family. We offer a range of plans to suit your budget, plus access to a network of quality care throughout the Caribbean and the USA. You can relax and enjoy life's greatest moments when you are covered with Fidelity Health. Call us today at 949-7822 for a free quote.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the Record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me this morning, Dr. Steve Macfield. We're going to have Dr. Macfield conclude his story on Commissioner Gerard and Mr. Miles Donkey and Boy D.
Yes, and so he jumped in his car, took off, run, and he drove up Shaden Road, turned on Elgin Avenue, and went back to Government House. Well, we were there laughing and having a good time, and we thought that was it. Mm-hmm. And then we saw, when we looked up near the library, mm-hmm. we saw policeman Earl Wood coming. In those days, policemen used to wear the helmets.
Yes.
And he had on the khaki short pants and the Bermuda socks and the helmet and so forth. And he came down and he said he came to impound the donkey. And so he asked us, well, what happened? Why is the commissioner wanted to impound the donkey? So we told him what had happened to the commissioner, that the donkey had pooped in the commissioner's shoes. Earl would start laughing and laughing, and his helmet fell off and fell on the ground. And he say, don't tell anybody that my helmet fell off. Don't tell them that my helmet fell off. And he say, I'll go and tell the commissioner that I couldn't find a donkey. And so when I was telling this story to some school children the other day, they was saying to see why he was worried about the helmet falling off. And I say, in those days, the symbol of power, of a policeman's power, was his hat.
Yes. I
say a policeman would take off his hat, tuck it under his arm, and come into a dance or come into a party, and he was not a policeman anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
That was a symbol of his power. It was his police power. But today that is all gone now. Mm-hmm. That's how the symbolism is all gone now. And so Gerard was like, as you said, a lot of the politicians here call him a dictator, because Gerard would not allow the rich people to do what they want with the country. And he was also the one who broke up the segregation in Georgetown. in the dances in the town hall.
Yes,
because remember now, like when you had state dances, that was when the warship came in, or the governor came in, or officials came in from Jamaica. They would get money from the government to put on these dances, and they would and they would give the only send invitations to white people only. And Gerard one night discovered, like, why are you doing this? And they says, well, the money's for us, dance is for us tonight, and for those other people tomorrow night. Means the colored people. And they wouldn't never let them have the dance at town hall. They would let them have in the old courthouse, which is the old courthouse on the waterfront. And Gerard waited for them. He didn't say a word to them. And he went and got Miss Annie Connor. And Malachi Connor, they call him Sky Blue. That year, Malachi had won the best dressed men's contest in Georgetown. And I mean, you're talking about dressed men. You're talking about cream serged full, double-breasted full suit, and all that sort of stuff and things like that. And he took them outside. And he waited until the dance started. And he went outside and he took them in the town hall, and he started dancing with Miss Annie, and he gave his wife to dance with Malachi Connor. And when the people saw the two colored people dancing in the town hall, they start leaving by the groves. Stop the music. And he says all of those people who are not civil servants can leave. But the civil servants who leave, they fired. They have no more job. And you know who was one of those that Gerard fired? Was Truman Bodden's father.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Interesting.
And he was the most important man in Cayman. Because he was head of the wireless station. He was head of the Cuban meteorological station. He was a wireless operator.
Wow.
And he was also the printer, printing stationer for the government.
Interesting.
He never worked for the government after that.
Interesting. Hopefully we can get to this before we get to the 8 o'clock news. This Caymanian Times, yes. I've read several articles in relation to Girl of the Week.
Yes.
And as I was going through them, I said to myself, but they're only featuring the light-skinned Caymanian girls or Caymanian women as Girl of the Week. And last night, while I was going through them again, and I want to say thank you to Mr. Alfonso Wright for providing these to us. Of course, I think they're coming from our archives, but I want to thank Mr. Alfonso Wright for that. So last night, now when I was going through them, I finally came upon one, and I'm going to use the term because this is the way that they use it there, a dark-skinned Caymanian. So I'm going to ask you very quickly, Dr. Steve, to read the Caymanian of the Week for that particular date. I'm not sure that would have been 1956 or 57.
That was January 1957.
Okay.
Monday, January 1957.
Okay.
And the Girl of the Week, it says, this week, this was the Times reporter. This week, I have selected a dark-skinned Caymanian beauty for my Girl of the Week series, vibrant Trella Miles, who has just turned 21. And when you've taken just one look at her, you won't find it difficult to understand why Trella is rated one of Georgetown's most popular girls. Trella is the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Urban Miles of this city, and she was born right here too. She got her basic education at Cayman High School, went over to Jamaica for her commercial training. And it must have been jolly good training, for she now holds down the job of assistant manager of the newfound restaurant in Georgetown, and included in her many duties is looking after the books. Trella is 5 inches taller than 5 feet, loves dancing, is an ardent movie fan, but she has no film favorites, takes them all as she goes along. But Trella can be serious too. Loves her city of Georgetown so much that she wants to see it get ahead, but fast. So she's just waiting for some enterprising soul to take the lead with the organization of some social club. And there you'll find the handsome Trella right there in the midst of it, all pulling her full weight. So very interesting that it says our Girl of the Week series, we have selected a dark-skinned Caymanian beauty for my Girl of the Week.
It goes to show you the racial divide, the light skin and the dark skin. And that reporter was a Jamaican reporter, but you had the same situation in Jamaica as well. We have to go to our 8 o'clock news, folks. When we return, the conversation with Dr. Steve McBreel will continue, so don't change that dial.
Studio time now is 7:59, brought to you by Price Right.
Price Right is Grand Cayman's warehouse shopping superstore, making your dollar go further with huge savings and no membership fees. Get more of the things you use every day at the right price. But it's not just grocery and health and beauty. Price Right has a full range of products from office to automotive, patio furnishings to kitchen appliances, and even electronics. And since warehouse prices mean savings for you, everything is priced right at Price Right, Grand Cayman's warehouse shopping superstore.
The voice of the Cayman Islands.
89.9 FM in Grand Cayman and 93.9 FM in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman.
Silver wings shining in the sunlight.
Radio Cayman.
Access. Information. Your community. News and information. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
From Radio Cayman's newsroom, I'm Shanda Gallego with your latest news. Cayman gets hit with a major downpour Tuesday, causing extensive flooding in several parts of Grand Cayman. According to the National Weather Service, a weak pressure gradient across the Caribbean is the culprit, and the latest forecast calls for similar weather conditions as a tropical wave just east of Jamaica moves into the Cayman area tomorrow morning. The National Roads Authority issued a statement Tuesday reassuring road users, quote, "The authority is working hard to address issues caused by the inclement weather." Adding, together with private sector partners, the NRA is tackling the areas most affected, specifically those in the low-lying areas of Grand Cayman. Work on the upgrades to the Bodden Town substation is near completion, and Radio Cayman's April Cummings has more on what that means to you.
CUC says completion of the work means that customers east of Prospect, excluding Northside, who within the past month experienced above normal levels of outages, will see an improvement in the reliability of service. The Bodden Town substation is currently being refurbished, and CUC anticipates it will be fully back in service by the end of this month. While the substation is out of service, customers who would normally be supplied from the Bodden Town substation are being supplied from Frank Sound or Prospect substations, and therefore are exposed to a greater risk of outages until the refurbishment is complete. Now, CUC says it has been going through a very active period of substation upgrades in order to increase capacity and reliability to customers in the affected districts. But in the interim, the necessary configuration to facilitate the upgrades reduces system redundancy and increases the vulnerability to outages. CUC says it also has begun construction of a new Prospect substation, with completion expected there in 2020. The utility company aims to complete that job with minimal exposure to outages, since the existing substation will still be in service throughout the construction period. April Cummings, Radio Cayman News.
The Frank Sound substation will be upgraded in 2021. CUC has already completed upgrades to the South Sound, North Sound Road, and Rum Point substations in October 2018, March 2019, and April 2019, respectively. In other local news, National Gallery launches its annual Walker's Art Club exhibition with over 150 student artwork being featured in a variety of media. NGCI's education coordinator, Jessica Ebikes.
There are 5 after-school art clubs with 75 students ages 5 to 17 years old who attend classes weekly, and this exhibition is a display of all they've been working on throughout the year. So the exhibition shows a variety of works from silk painting, ceramics, printmaking, found object sculptures, you name it. They've been incredibly creative.
This year's end-of-year exhibition concept is Imaginarium, which refers to a place devoted to the imagination. The exhibition runs until July 6th. Admission to the exhibition is free of charge. That is your latest local news. We now turn to the BBC with a check of international news. That's it from me. From Radio Cayman's newsroom, I'm Shanda Gallego.
BBC News with Jerry Smith. The Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido has told the BBC that outside military intervention remains an option to secure the downfall of President Nicolas Maduro. He said the aim would always be a transitional government and free elections, but military intervention might be necessary if Mr. Maduro refused to relinquish power. South Korea's president has said Washington and Pyongyang are talking behind the scenes about setting up a possible third summit between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un. Talks between the two broke down after a failed summit in Hanoi 4 months ago. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei says his country will not retreat in the face of US insults. In his first comments since President Trump imposed sanctions on him and other senior figures on Monday, he described the sanctions as cruel, but said Iran remained strong. New Zealand's Parliament has again voted in favour of a bill that would legalise voluntary euthanasia. If approved for a third time, it would mean that adults with less than 6 months to live or with irreversible medical conditions could request a lethal dose of medication. The French President Emmanuel Macron has said he will not sign a final communiqué at this week's G20 summit unless it mentions the Paris Climate Change Agreement. President Trump announced the US withdrawal from the agreement in his first year in office. BBC News.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
Traffic congestion is bad for your mental health, bad for your wallet, and bad for the environment. Did you know that Cayman's carbon emissions per capita are nearly 4 times that of Europe, according to worlddata.info? Empty car seats are a wasted resource and contribute to traffic congestion. Carpooling is socially and environmentally friendly and can save you up to $1,000 per year in fuel and upkeep. Visit the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure Facebook page for more tips on energy-efficient commuting and be an energy advocate.
Kind of like one surgery fits all. You're saying, that's not necessary. That's not going to be the case with me. And that's good to hear.
For the Health of It is proudly brought to you by
Eating Clean. Wake back up to quality foods with eatingclean.com. That's clean with a K. EATINGKLEAN.com.
The Weather Report is proudly sponsored by Super Stitch Sewing and Fabric Center, your one-stop household store at 39 Pasador Place, Smith Road. Still offering the best prices in town. Call 949-2833 or go to superstitch.com.ky. New stock has just arrived at Super Stitch. Now don't take my word for it. Drop by and see for yourself. Fresh off the boat, we have loads of fabric, vinyl upholstery fabric, fabric for cushions, outdoor fabrics, and dress fabric. That's not all. Super Stitch has sewing accessories and craft items. Included in the new shipment, you will find sheets, comforters, throw pillows, bath mats, rugs, and curtains for every room in your home. Super Stitch, 39 Pasador Place, Smith Road. Still offering the best price in town. Call 949-2833 or go to superstitch.com.ky.
That's a good morning. Time now for the latest weather report. Synopsis indicate isolated showers along with light to moderate easterly winds and seas expected across the Cayman area for the next 24 hours as an upper level low lingers over the northwest Caribbean. Further east, a tropical wave just east of Jamaica will move into the Cayman area tomorrow morning, which may support additional showers. Radar images show isolated showers in and around the Cayman area moving towards the west. Now the forecast for today calling for partly cloudy skies with cloudy spells and a 40% chance of showers and thunder. Showers will be locally heavy at times. Temperatures will be in the lower 90s and winds will be east to northeast 10 to 15 knots. Seas will be slight to moderate with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. Forecast for tonight calling for pretty much the same partly cloudy skies with a 30% chance of showers, and temperatures will fall to the upper 70s. Winds will be east to northeast at 5 to 10 knots, and seas will be slight with wave heights of 1 to 3 feet. Low tide will be this morning at 11:15, high tide this evening at 6:15. The sun will set this evening at 5 minutes past 7 and will rise tomorrow morning at 5:50. And the outlook through Friday morning is calling for cloudiness and showers associated with the passage of the tropical wave to linger across our area. That's the very latest on your weather report.
Superstitch Sewing and Fabric Center was the proud sponsor of the Weather Report, your one-stop shop for all of your household items, craft items, jewelry, beads, and decorations, and much more. Call Superstitch at 949-2833 or email customer care at superstitch.com.ky.
New stock has just arrived at Superstitch. Now don't take my word for it. Drop by and see for yourself. Fresh off the boat, we have loads of fabric, vinyl upholstery fabric, fabric for cushions, outdoor fabrics, and dress fabric. That's not all. Superstitch has sewing accessories and craft items. Included in the new shipment, you will find sheets, comforters, throw pillows, bath mats, rugs, and curtains for every room in your home. Superstitch, 39 Pasadora Place, Smith Road. Still offering the best price in town. Call 949-2833 or go to superstitch.com.ky.
Good morning once again. Let's check in with our traffic situation. Coming from the east, slow-moving traffic. Slight delays expected and a lot of patience needed this morning as you're heading down to Georgetown. Traffic busy coming from the east on Shamrock Road and the Linford-Pearson Highway. Coming off the Linford-Pearson Highway and Agnes Way, traffic is steady but flowing. Steady traffic on Crew Road and some sections busy. Moderate flow of traffic in and out of Georgetown and Shedden Road, as well as on Godfrey Dixon Way and Eastern Avenue. Traffic flowing pretty good on the Westview Road in both directions, especially in front of the Ritz. Northtown Road, coming from the Butterfield roundabout heading towards the Industrial Park area. Traffic moving along moderately. If you see any accidents or incidents on Cayman's roads, give us a call here at Radio Cayman, 949-6990. Have a good morning, buckle up, and look out for the vehicle in the front of you and the one in the behind of you. Have a good morning.
At Kirk's Home Center, we can make your life much better. We got it all together. We got a great deal in store for you.
This week at Kirk Home Center, stay cool through the summer months with a 52-inch ceiling fan from Hunter for $101.99. Get an incredibly smooth and scratch-free finish on woodworking, plastic, or metal projects with DeWalt's Orbit Sander for $75.99. Save time and energy and get a professional finish with a pancake air compressor for $175.09. And spice up your home dining set with 16-piece dinnerware sets starting at $31.99.
Kirk's Home Center. Got a great deal in store for you. Support our port, support our tourism.
Across the Caribbean, our competitors have built piers that give cruise ship passengers a better arrival and departure experience. How can we expect to compete if we don't meet passengers' expectations?
Looking forward, looking bright.
Learn more and spread the word.
Support our port, support our tourism.
Radio Cayman 3 to 6 mix on the weekdays. Brought to you by
Cayman Insurance Center, serving the community for 45 years. Don't take chances with your family's future. Call Denise Brown at 814-7229 or Michael Webster at 925-5433. Fitness Plus and Train with Dre. Getting in shape has never been easier with the mobile fitness app by Train with Dre and the new Eco Power Sport Art equipment.
Every day.
All the time.
Visit fitnessplus.com for more information. And City Walk, serving Chinese, Japanese, and Filipino dishes until 11 p.m. each night. East meets West at City Walk. Dine in, take out, or order online. See their full menu at citywalk.ky. Call 947-9965.
Ultimate party show in the afternoon. Radio Cayman Super Jam.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matter. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, Dr. Steve Macfield. We have one caller, but before we go to that caller, we know who the caller is, and we want that caller to be able to chime in and contribute to this discussion as well. So we spoke about the color divide in the Caribbean, in Cayman, in Jamaica as well. Light-skinned people being treated differently, and also depending on your standing in terms of your wealth as well. Dr. McField, there's an article in there, and you and I and others have spoken about our national song. The composer, the person who composed, wrote our national song, Beloved Isles Cayman, and Miss Leela Ross Shire, and about the fact that she should be one of our national heroes. Now, people ask questions, what has this person done to be a national hero? I have said, and you have said, that if the Cayman Islands were ever to become independent, I see no other choice for our national anthem than that song, Beloved Isle Cayman.
That's right. Let's
see what Commissioner Gerard, tell our people what Commissioner Gerard said in 1957, 56 or 57 about that as well.
Yes, he was actually speaking in the assembly, and he was introducing Major Donalds, right, who was supposed to be his replacement.
Right.
And this is what he said in the context. I was sworn in on this platform by Mr. A.C. Panton, MBE, JP, who has also sadly passed away. I stood on this platform with the same mixture of pride and trepidation, which I am sure Major Donald feels today. I was treated to a rendering of the beautiful song written by Mrs. Shire, which I feel should be the national anthem of the Cayman Islands, for which I would have asked today, but for the fact that would have interfered with my desire to be unsentimental on this occasion. I then retired to Government House, where as a grass widower, I lived for some months on an almost exclusive diet of lobsters, which were then plentiful and which fetched the splendid price of 4 pence each.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's not something? Mm-hmm. So he was saying that he wanted to discuss the fact that Miss MacTaggart Ross Shire song should be the national anthem of the Cayman Islands, but he wanted to leave the stage in an unsentimental mood, mm-hmm, instead of getting into sentiments with the people who he was speaking to.
Yes.
Because remember what he said now when he was talking about them. He was telling Major Donald, says, the one thing I can safely predict is that he will not have smooth sailing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's what he was telling Major Donald.
Yes, his successor.
He will never be short, when the weather is fine, of a multitude of armchair sailors who will not only volunteer to take the wheel from him, but who will, when he declines their offers, twist his arm to get the wheel away from him, and who will, if that fails, go below and skulk, meddling with the steering gear in an effort to take the steering gear apart. Equally, when the weather is tough, he will find astonishingly few people on deck, and fewer still to stand beside him holding the wheel and lending their assistance to prevent the vessel from stealing over. His critics will have by then taken to the boat's roaring Airman for himself. that obtains today.
Yeah, he knew the people.
He knew the people.
Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Thanks for waiting.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, Mr. Moderator. Good morning, Dr. McField.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I can't help. Only you, Dr. McField, could make these come alive the way you do. And I'm thankful that the moderator recognizes that and has you on. Gerard, the only blight on Gerard's record, but for that, mm-hmm, and Dr. McField, you know this well.
Yes.
But for that blight, he would have had a perfect 10. That blight was when he tried to take away Mr. Ormond's human rights.
Yes.
And Mr. Ormond had the means and the acumen to challenge it, and Mr. Ormond won.
Mm-hmm.
But Gerard to me is a hero in the development of these islands. I'm going to tell you something else too, Dr. McField, that I'm sure you know. Gerard was responsible for democratizing the civil service in that he removed the necessity to be of light skin to enter the civil service, and he made it a meritocracy,
mm-hmm,
based not upon upon the color of skin, but upon the person's ability to perform. And also, in that speech you just read, he made mention of his housekeepers and cook. I think there were 2 Stewart sisters from Shedden Road. Edith was one. I don't remember the name of the other one. He praised them and Miss Frances.
Yes.
And Miss Frances Borden, the late Frances Borden. Gerard was single-handedly responsible for the modern development of these islands. He left us with a hospital, a 4-bed hospital, including a maternity ward and X-ray unit. He was responsible for the airport, and that's why I was chagrined when the name of the Cayman Brac Airport, the Gerard Smith Airport, was changed, because I think that it was appropriate. Gerard was the first commissioner whose term the British extended, because they recognized that the projects that he had started weren't finished.
He was here for 4.5 years, I think.
Yes. They extended his term until those projects were finished. And so but I want to come back to the business of racism. We in the Cayman Islands will never be able to progress beyond the point we have until we ostracize the ghost of racism which existed in our society and which still exists today. And I give Gerard credit for bringing that to our attention. And Dr. McPhail, in the case you cited, Gerard not only fired them, but he disqualified them from receiving a pension for the time they had served as well.
Yes. But just let me, Mr. Borden, President Borden, just let me read something, what he said, which is very relevant to say. A final point, he says, the principal business of the dependency is not, and this is a good thing, both from the visitors and from the local point of view, catering for tourists. He said the principal business of the dependency is exporting seamen. Caymanians are first-class sailors and are to be found in tankers and merchant vessels all over the world. Their remittances home produce what is for the Caribbean a very high standard of living. You are therefore not coming to a poor and miserable community where the tourist is an inward oddity superimposed upon the local scene. The visitor to Cayman very soon becomes part of the local scene, part of a modesty, prosperous little community which has its own way of life and which has a true appreciation of the virtues of sitting in the porch on a swing and putting the world to rights from the deep, deep recess of a hammock. That's what he said. Can you actually believe that?
Permit me, Mr. Moderator, to leave you with this final point.
Sure, sir.
It was a practice among the justices who were merchants to go down to His Majesty at that time, Customs House, and take out their goods and pay at a later date. A very dominant merchant did that, and Gerard sent the late Delworth McLaughlin, who was a constable, to that merchant. And I can call his name, was Duke Merrin.
Yes.
And he said, Constable, you tell Mr. Merrin that I say, I want His Majesty's Customs and Excise in that treasury before sundown today. Otherwise, when I send you back, I will be sending you back with a warrant for his arrest.
Wow.
So Gerard broke up that practice. Upon his departure, upon the eve of Gerard's departure, that same merchant made this comment, at last we have been unshackled from that old tyrant of Gerard.
That it is right here in the Cayman Times. His rebuke of Gerard. Yes.
You see, I'm not making this stuff up.
Yes.
I shall leave you and listen.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Let's go to the next caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Thanks for being so patient.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Rossi. Good morning to your guest.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You were talking about the airport, and I think what happened yesterday is a very shameful thing. The new airport flood water, the ceilings leaking water in the passengers, and all these videos circulating in the country showing something embarrassing, that this country spent millions of dollars to extend the airport, and unfortunately, it is a big scandal, and it shows you there is a corruption in that airport. And I'm calling in the governor of.
There's a corruption because the roof is leaking. That's evidence of corruption.
Of course, there is corruption.
How do you link the two?
That is mean that the engineers who do the work, they don't do their job. And number two, whoever contract that airport, he never did his job right, and that needs investigation. Because you can't have airport you spend $55 million in an airport, and this is a scandal. It can't happen in this country. This is a issue need a proper investigation. What material should be used? If these materials being used right, and that is need investigation. So I am asking the governor office, whoever in charge, the premier office, whoever in charge, to do a proper investigation. If that happen in other country, trust me, the minister will have hand his resignation in the same day it happened.
Okay, thank you very much, caller, for that. Thank you very much. We're going to switch gears now, Doc.
Yes.
Oh, we have another caller still? One more caller? Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. Moderator, and good morning to Dr. McField.
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Sir. Kenneth Bryan here. I'm always interested to hear about the elements of racism back in the days before I was born, because I know it was relevant, but I obviously am a lot younger, so I can't see as direct as you guys once did. But my question would be to Dr. McField and potentially Dr. Borden, who's listening, I'm sure of, is do you see cases of racism still today, and what are they? And also, based on experiences from traveling the world, what would you do to attack it? Because obviously, I believe racism still happens, but it happens in such a awkward way that you can't identify it, and you can't. It's not as blatant, so you can't attack it. So, just based on your experiences, where do you still see it happening? And if there's any advice as a young legislator like myself on how to address it, because I know it's still real, but it's the hardest thing to address and change. So I'll wait to hear the answers.
Certainly. Thank you very much. I would go on a limb to say discriminating against Caymanians based on their nationality, their origin, in terms of work is a form of racism in itself. Sure. And we see that over and over. We hear people complain about it over and over. Their applications that they submit go unanswered. No one acknowledging the fact that their applications have been received. If they haven't been considered for the job, they're not told that as well. So that in itself is a form of racism, Doc. Yes, and that's a form of racism. And to the caller, how are we going to attack it? Well, you see how hard the commissioner had to attacking it, Gerard, and he was the top man at the time in the Cayman Islands. He was the boss of the Cayman Islands, and he had a hard time. One of the problems that we have in Cayman is that the people who suffer from racism really do not have the power to combat it. It's simply because a lot of people have accepted their position vis-a-vis the other people. And the people who come forward, like Roy Borden, myself, Orrett Connor, and Dr. Frank McField, and Roy Gilbert McLean, and all of those people who came, you almost have to sacrifice your life, sacrifice your whole family, sacrifice your career to be able to fight against this. Because unless you agree to do that, you will not get any inroads. And when people get up against the system that's still established here, you'll find that you won't be able to pay your mortgage, you won't be able to have a home, you won't be able to get an education, you won't be able to get an education for your children, and you won't be able to
to do a lot of things to fulfill your life dreams and your family's dreams. And so what people do, people simply capitulate and accept what's going on. And so it's going to be very hard. And the way to combat it is through education. And that is why Orrett has taken this form to bring to this form in the show to bring to people, because if you don't know where you're coming from, you don't know how you've gotten here, and then you don't know where you're going to go. And that's why some people say, oh, history is nowhere. History is the thing that tells you who you are, where you're going, and so forth. So we know now how it happened. We know what sustained it, and we know why it still exists in the country.
Yes. Time for us to take a commercial break, folks. Please stay tuned for The Record with Dr. Steve Macfield. We'll be back shortly.
2019 marks 100 years of junior achievement worldwide. Junior achievement in Cayman is now 29 years old. To celebrate and support this milestone, help Junior Achievement Cayman to continue our work, guiding next generation Cayman to new horizons in life and business. Get your ticket and enter to win an exclusive trip, Namibia, known as a smile on the face of Africa, offering a unique blend of amazing desert scenes, exquisite wildlife, and fascinating tribal cultures.
Get an adventure of a lifetime while supporting Junior Achievement.
Purchase your ticket and stand a chance to win an exclusive all-inclusive 16-day tour to Namibia for 2 persons. Namibia can be reached from the Cayman Islands with Delta Airlines flights via Atlanta and Johannesburg. Experience the astounding and desolate dunescapes of South Namibia, the amazing endangered wildlife of the Etosha National Park. Purchase your ticket today. Junior Achievement, another Rotary Central inspiration project. Did you know the third most important factor for customer retention is cleanliness? With 95% of shoppers saying exterior appearance influences where they decide to shop. Keep your business clean with Roper's Janitorial. From offices to restaurants, interior and exterior, walls to rugs and flooring, Roper's cleans it all, including 24-hour emergency service. Roper's Janitorial, 949-2511. Email janitorial@ropers.ky. Dress your business for success with Roper's Janitorial. We make your business shine. 949-2511.
Hi, my name is Neraya LeBlanc. I am the minister and evangelist to the West Bay Church of Christ on 24 Batabano Road. I would love to take this opportunity to invite you to experience God's family at West Bay for yourself. We are a caring congregation that strongly believes in reaching out beyond ourselves to spread the gospel of Christ. We also take great pleasure in ministering to the needs of our people in our community. As God's called out kingdom people, we are in the business of transforming lives for the Master's use. For more information, you can visit our website at westbaycichurchofchrist.org or call us at 946-9294 or 917-1809.
Declaring the word of the Lord. Cayman Islands Church of Christ presents Word of the Lord.
Word of the Lord, heard Sundays at 6:30 p.m. on Radio Cayman.
Sometimes having a middleman is not a bad thing, especially when it comes to insurance. Do you know that when it comes to cost, ease, speed, and peace of mind, insurance brokers ranked higher than when customers buy direct? So, for all your insurance needs, call Fidelity Insurance. We're the middleman you want. Call us today at 949-7822. Fidelity. We're good for you.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the Record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, Dr. Steve Macfield. We're talking about articles in Cayman Times, talking about the departure of Commissioner Gerard and Major Donald taking his place, talking about racism in the Cayman Islands as well, what it was then, what it is now. Unfortunately, we have a Bill of Rights that only applies to the government. It's vertical, not horizontal, and it applies only to the government. And the government has basically said, well, you know, when it comes to the private sector, there are laws in place that would govern issues that would govern them as opposed to what is in the Constitution. I believe that the Bill of Rights needs to be extended to the private sector as well to ensure that people's rights are protected. We're going to switch gears and we're going to go to advisory district councils. We have a caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Yes, good morning, gentlemen. I just have a comment.
Okay, go right ahead, sir.
Yes, Moses Colonel is disrespectful and a disgrace. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. I guess we'll take that for what it's worth. We'll go on to advisory district councils. We're going to close the phone lines off for a few minutes to get us to lay the foundation for this. Constitutional negotiation, 16th of January 2009. Now, the 16th of January, those negotiations took place in the Cayman Islands. The final negotiations took place in London in February in London. So on the subject of advisory district councils, and I know Dr. McPhail, you're persistent in your calls, you know, for the establishment of these councils.
Yes.
So the chairman says, so I'm afraid that has to go on the list for London. But the list is not huge, even with those 2 points, and I'll come back to summarize where I think we are on that list. That leaves the new text of district councils, which was circulated last evening, and I'm trying to find it. Here we are, proposed district councils provision. My first comment on this text, text is to wonder why it is necessary. I don't think it is necessary because, of course, the legislature may make laws for peace, order, and good governance for the Cayman Islands, provided they're compatible with the Constitution and don't contravene the Colonial Laws Validity Act requirements. There is full power to legislate, so it is not necessary to say that a law enacted by the legislature may provide for this or that in terms of district councils. It's not necessary to do that. So I wonder why it was thought necessary or useful to have a specific provision apparently enabling the legislature to do something which it can already do. So what he was questioning there is why put in the Constitution that there should be a law to create advisory district councils, because the legislature has the power to do that anyway. So then the Honourable Alden McLaughlin goes on to say, well, based on that, sir, perhaps we need to express it a little differently. I think the feeling on both sides is that we want there to be a constitutionally recognized but we want concept of district councils as advisory bodies to MLAs to be constitutionally recognized and required. They wanted it to be required. So there were strong sentiments to have advisory district council. He goes on to say, this is all part of trying to build a better democratic framework and infrastructure so that there is more participation by the community in the work of the legislature through its MLAs. And this was something that was talked about as we did the rounds during the constitutional modernization education exercise. So that's why we think, collectively feel, it ought to find its place in the Constitution. Here, then, what the Honorable W. McKeever Bush says.
Who was the opposition at the
yes,
time?
but one strong proponent of advisory district councils as well. Mr. Chair, I'll get you to read that part. You read what Mr. Bush said. I read what
Mr. Bush. Now Speaker Bush said, Mr. Chairman, this comes from our finding in the community, and we put it in our document, and we proposed it when we began this process. And I do have a problem with what the government is saying and the way this is drafted, because if we are really talking about the empowerment, the Constitution and things that can augment and enhance democracy and involve, the Constitution, I think, has to provide for it, but not just to say that a new law may provide. I think it must be shall provide for it. Mm-hmm. I don't know what we should have, that we should leave the establishment and functions of a law if we really want to have empowerment of people. I feel that way about this as I felt about a Senate, which the government has rejected. I think this is what people want. They want to be more involved, but they don't want to leave it to the whims and fancy of a government that may put in place a law or abolish a law. So if it is their constitutional provisions, it is much harder to take what people feel as a right for them to be involved. And what we are doing is giving them a constitutional right and provisions to be in the Constitution.
Okay, and then the chairman goes on to say, I think if there are going to be such district councils established, I think it would have to be done by virtue of a law in order to set out how they are composed and what they can do. So I don't see a way around that. The other point I was going to make is, it is not, my first remark should not be taken as saying it is not possible to have a provision. It is just, it's legally unnecessary because a law can provide for these things anyway. So again, he's pointing out, that there's a law. But I think what the Cayman delegation, both sides wanted to say is that we feel so strongly that we should have these advisory district councils that we want the Constitution to say that a law must be enacted to provide for them, despite the fact that the legislature has the power to make laws and stuff like that. By having it in the Constitution, it obligates them to pass a law. So he goes on to say, but as I understood Alden's point and McKeever making the same point, that part of the purpose of saying something in the Constitution is to give this emphasis, is to give this optical emphasis. And the one word that seems to me crucial, if it's designed to enhance democracy in this text, is the word elected. If it's to enhance democracy, should it not say the establishment, functions, and jurisdictions of elected councils for each district, electoral district? Otherwise, it could read as being the intention here to have a law which will simply provide for councils which are appointed by some supremo who chooses whoever he or she wants to sit on it. So I think it's designed to show a positive optical message to enhance democracy. One should insert the word elected before councils in the second line. Let's see what the Honorable W. McKeever Bush said about that.
Honorable W. McKeever said, Mr. Chairman, I am not going to agree to that. Not a matter of democracy. Yes, it is another form of addendum to the democracy. But, Mr. Chairman, I don't believe that this country need to go into that kind of expense for what we have in mind, because that's what it would create. If you're saying that we should have an elected council and then you do that, no, to me, they're going to create more politics, and we don't need, and I don't think people want that. What the people want a say. And if we give constitutional provisions where they say that there must be a council and that the people appointed there give the MLAs their feelings on what affects them, where the road should be and how many roads should be, and whether the schools should go there, or whether we do need another post office, and take into consideration the expenditure for that, I think that's what people want. I don't think, and you would find some that would want to be elected because they feel like they should have standing equal to MLAs. But if they want to do that, then go put their money up and let us turn the spotlight on them. But I don't think a second tier is going to help us.
And here's what the Honourable Alden McLaughlin chimed in and said, Mr. Chairman, we agree. We don't think that what we need or is warranted is essentially local government, a system of local government below the MLAs. What we want, I think all of us, is advisory councils to advise the MLAs, not to bind the MLA, because he is the one or she is the one elected. So we're at IDM on that point. The chairman, how is it proposed then? How is it envisaged that any such councils would be composed if they are not elected? We're going to go to a commercial break. When we return, you will then hear what our representative, Mr. Ralston Anglin, had to say during this discussion as well. So please stay tuned.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, formerly known as Professional Pharmacy, would like to thank the Cayman communities for their loyal support these past 18 years. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care. Thorough background checks and follow-up consultations is only the beginning. Your safety is our concern. Our staff are respected healthcare professionals whose job requires careful and precise calculations. Thank you for being a part of our family and for choosing CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, where we prepare to provide exceptional care. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we care about your health.
2019 marks 100 years of junior achievement worldwide. Junior achievement in Cayman is now 29 years old. To celebrate and support this milestone, help Junior Achievement Cayman to continue our work, guiding next generation Cayman to new horizons in life and business. Get your ticket and enter to win an exclusive trip Namibia, known as a smile on the face of Africa, offering a unique blend of amazing desert scenes, exquisite wildlife, and fascinating tribal cultures.
Get an adventure of a lifetime while supporting Junior Achievement.
Purchase your ticket and stand a chance to win an exclusive all-inclusive 16-day tour to Namibia for 2 persons. Namibia can be reached from the Cayman Islands with Delta Airlines flights via Atlanta and Johannesburg. Experience the astounding and desolate dunescapes of South Namibia, the amazing endangered wildlife of the Etosha National Park. Purchase your ticket today. Junior Achievement, another Rotary Central inspiration project.
Wow, it seems I buy a battery every year.
Oh, for real? You should buy your car battery from Vantman. Their batteries are tough. I have a 3-year warranty on mine.
Oh, I know that trick. I take it back and they charge me a percentage of the price.
Hear me out, bro. Not at Vamp Bobo. You can get a 3-year full warranty, no charge. And if they install it at Vamp, it includes free towing and jumping service. And let me tell you, you will never have to get your hands dirty changing no battery.
Get Motorcraft Max or Plus battery for 20% off when it's installed by the service department at Vamp Motors on Walker's Road. Now that's a deal you can get charged up about. Vamp Motors, keeping you on the road.
Extended through June.
At Logic, we make things better for our customers. It's why we're offering free Boost Wi-Fi. With Boost, you get improved Wi-Fi connectivity everywhere in your home, so there's no more dead zones. The only people we're not making this better for is parents. Because now with seamless Wi-Fi in every room in your home, go to your room isn't really the punishment it used to be. Sorry about that. Sign up now for any Logic Bundle package and get free Boost Wi-Fi for a limited time. Visit logic.ky for details.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, Dr. Steve Macfield. We still have the phone lines closed because we want to do a comprehensive reading of these minutes from the constitutional talks in relation to advisory district councils. So much is talked about it. We have legislation, but at the moment, everything is basically at a standstill except for those districts that have set up their own advisory district councils and those members of the Legislative Assembly who are prepared to listen to those councils and their concerns and any recommendations that they may make to them as well. So the chairman, Mr. Ian Henry, wanted to know how it is envisaged that any such councils would be composed if they're not elected, and the Honourable Alden McLaughlin then pointed out that this would be dealt with through legislation. And then the chairman responds and says, but what do you envisage the legislation would say? And also says as to how the councils would be composed. MLA Mr. Ralston Anglin then said, what we always envisaged was that the council would always be appointed by the premier, leader of the opposition, and the governor would have an appointment on the council. And so let's say for a particular district, there was going to be 7 council persons. Each of those would get 3. That is the leader of the opposition and the premier, right? The governor, say, would get 1, and that way, that would be the independent members of the council, right? He goes on to say, and we went that way because we wanted to ensure that the ruling or governing party, for example, didn't just get to put 7 or say on and say, here's the councils for the district who duly represent the broad population within the district. I'm searching, sir, for our discussion paper because I think it did. I'm not sure that spoke to it, but it certainly did. Yes, here it is. The district councils, now he's quoting from their discussion paper, the district councils would be appointed by the government, opposition, and the governor, with the balance of power typically resting in the hands of the governor's appointees as they are seen as the independent members. So no party loyalty or association. This would be on paper 16 of our discussion paper. What I don't understand there, Dr. Macfield, is how would the governor's appointment be the balance of power because they're independent members if you have 3 appointed by the premier, 3 appointed by the leader of the opposition, and one by the governor. The only balance there is that if you needed a majority. Of votes, that one could be the swing vote. Other than that, right. I just don't understand what they're getting at. But let's see what others have to say now. Okay. You will read again, Doc.
And then Donor McKeever Bush. And Mr. Chairman, a good point is being raised that later on, if the country finds itself where we have funds to operate a true system of local governance, then we could, graduate to that. But we don't want to do that. We want to be able to give the people a say, but at the same time, and give them constitutional standing, but at the same time keep costs down. And to me, that's one of the big things. Costs and less politics, too. Less politics. And then the Senate is, why don't you stick to building roads? You don't know nothing about a Senate.
I know that remark was being made to the now leader of the opposition, Honorable R.
McLean. Yes.
And then Mr. Ada Thompson, who I think represented the Chamber of Commerce, he said, Mr. Chair, if I might ask, and pardon me for my ignorance if it's more than obvious, but would this mean then that the general populace would have to go through this council, these councils, and so then? And then Mr. McKeever Bush says, you mean that they wouldn't have access to government? Mr. Ada Thompson then replied, to government on a whole. Then Honorable W. McKeever Bush said, no, but we would be stupid. Any government would be stupid to bypass their constituents. Then Mr. Ada Thompson then says, it goes back to the question if they should be elected then as opposed to appointed. Honorable McKeever Bush, no. Mr. Ada Thompson, at the end of the day, the general public has access to the government. It's just much ado about nothing. Honorable McKeever Bush, no. I think that you are that any representative, the governor together will appoint people across party lines, and they will have good input. But you're not going to bypass your constituents, Mr. Ada Thompson. So this would be somewhat mimicking single-member constituencies to some extent. Then I'll have you now read what Mr. Ralston Anglin said.
Mr. Ralston said, Mr. Chairman, let me elaborate on this point, just 2 minutes. What we find typically in our district is that after a general election, you typically, as in any constituency anywhere, you have people who are firmly for you, against you, and then you have some in the middle, and you're one. Right. Now, after an election is all over, and you go into running the district for 4 years, one of the weaknesses that we have found in our districts is that usually the people that you get most of your input and advice from, just because of the fact that you had to go out and run, and you have a campaign committee, etc., are the people who support you, and you oftentimes do not get to reach, and get not necessarily a relationship, but input from the other people as well. One of the real benefits of this is that it will be the district level ensure that every district, as we're trying to build our communities and getting a voice that is truly representative of the entire community. We see this as a key building block for us in terms of community development and interaction with the community. To answer Mr. Thompson's question, if someone wants to come to my MLA office to see me, they can still come. However, if once we go down this route and you get good, strong terms of reference and the council get up and running and really become bodies that are recognized within the community, getting things done, sure, people are going to then go when councils when councils call their meetings and say, well, we think a park should be good on X Street. But this is going to be a process. We're not expecting this to happen overnight. We just see it as a good first building block to true community participation and an involvement in a formalized way. Just to say, Mr. Chairman, this wasn't dreamed up just overnight. I mean, right now there's a non-profit organization in Cayman called the West Bay Community Council. That was something that was formed in 2001 or 2002. I can't remember exact time, but it was aimed to try and do this exact same thing because we kept hearing from the public after getting elected. Well, now do we really do things better? How do we be better organized? How do we really get our voices to you in a more collaborative and a more formal manner? This would be a first step. Now, in 3 or 4, 5 elections, God spares life. Who knows what the public will want? The public may then be at the point where they say, we would like a model of local government. Let's think about it. And then we may commission such a study, but that's down the road. Or for right now, we see this as a good first step. let's get this bill and let's get it functioning and working, and then.
Okay, Ms. Susan, you ready for... okay, then the chairman goes on to say, I think my conclusion on this is that as drafted, it is clear that the real, not battleground, but the real time when the details need to be sorted out is when a bill comes forward for discussion, because it will need legislation to sort it out. And provided that the text as it is at the moment is neutral, which it is, I would have preferred to see the word elected before councils. But I can see that argument will still need to be carried through. So it's neutral, and it does not rule out the option of elected councils. I think my inclination, even though it is not legally necessary to say that, if you both regard it as important for optical reasons, is to leave. I would recommend leaving this language exactly as it is, and curious as it may seem, because it is not necessary to have it. We simply put it in, and it is for later to work it all out in terms of legislation. If there's any push to change any of this carefully drafted language, I fear that that we have to take it back to London, because I think we could advise our minister that this, albeit legally unnecessary, it is a thing for a later date. It's a thing for you to sort out, but at a later date. So are you all happy then just to take this language? So that was the discussion on there. We're going to critically analyze this, Dr. Macfield, when we return after the headline news at 9 o'clock. Folks, please stay tuned.
Radio K-Man. Radio K-Man's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
Motorists are advised to expect slight delays as convoys with police vehicles escorting visiting dignitaries on island for the pre-joint ministerial council and trade summit set to begin at the Kimpton Seafire today. No road closures are expected, but there are a number of activities planned throughout the week and weekend for Celebrate Cayman as well. In news elsewhere, El Salvador's government has warned people against risking their lives to reach the U.S. after a man and his baby daughter drowned in the Rio Grande. Photos of their bodies found face down in shallow water with the 23-month-old girl's arm around her father's neck have sparked condemnation. It comes as the U.S. and Mexico implement tougher policies to stem the flow of undocumented migrants, mostly from Central America, traveling north. At least 6 have died in recent days. Former special counsel Robert Mueller has agreed to testify publicly before Congress on July 17th after Democrats issued subpoenas to compel him to appear, the chairman of 2 House committees announced. Mueller's unusual back-to-back testimony in front of the House Judiciary and Intelligence Committees is likely to be the most highly anticipated congressional hearing in years, particularly given Mueller's resolute silence throughout his 2-year investigation into Russia contacts with U.S. President Donald Trump's campaign. Mueller never responded to angry public attacks from Trump, nor did he ever personally join his prosecutors in court or make announcements of criminal charges from the team. Those are your latest updates from Radio Cayman's newsroom. I'm Shanda Gallego.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands. What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, Dr. Steve Macfield. We're reviewing the verbatim minutes of the constitutional negotiations held in the Cayman Islands in London. This one was January the 16th, 2009 in the Cayman Islands. There's a little bit more text in relation to it as well. We also had Susan Dixon, who was one of the legal advisors to the FCO, and she says, I just wondered in the heading whether you should call it perhaps a community council, which was the way that Ralston was referring to it, because, well, maybe it's just for us in the UK. District council seems to me to imply something that you don't seem to be talking about, and community council might be better. Then Honorable McKeever Bush says, Miss Dixon, sometimes we will speak, and I speak for my district, we will speak of the community of Governor's Sound and a community of Northwest Point. So I think district is the right meaning, the electoral district. The chairman asked the governor to have some input as well. Doc, tell us what the governor said.
And Governor Stewart-Jack said, sorry, I just got one point of clarification. It is envisaged that these committees should have any executive functions at all, because potentially, if they were to do so, that might derogate from the powers of other parts of government and would therefore have to be reflected in the Constitution.
And the Honorable Arden V. Arden McLean says,
advisory only.
And then the
Governor Stewart-Jack said, advisory only, okay. And then the chairman said to operate on advisory bodies, that's the, and then the Honorable McKeever would say, and if you want to put it that in the heading, proposed advisory district councils. And then the chairman said, advisory district councils, and Honorable McKeever would say, I don't mind that. And that was the end of the discussions.
At that point. And we know that then the discussions that were held in London, there were so many things to finalize that not a whole lot of discussion took place in London on it, but it was then inserted into the Constitution that there would be a law established. Now, let's talk about this whole concept of whether or not the members of the Advisory District Council should be elected or they should be appointed. If you really, really want the people to have their say, to be able to advise, do you leave it to the governing party as well as the leader of the opposition to choose who should sit on those councils? Is that really giving the people any sort of power in terms of who should be on there?
No, it doesn't. And I don't see any reasons why the people in the district cannot elect who they want to sit on the advisory council. Because it would still be an advisory council advising the MLAs. But there's no reason that the people in the district cannot elect who they want to be on that advisory council. To me, it's very simple, for the record. You could send a notice out to all the people in the district to say at a meeting to be held at X, the town hall or the civic center, the meeting is to elect members of the advisory council, bring your nominations for chairman, for secretary, for treasurer, for council members. They could all come one evening. They could all bring their nominations. They could all be seconded. And the people in the district could then and there, by a show of hands or by ballot or whatever, elect the people who they want to sit on the advisory council to advise the MLAs of matters in the district. It's very simple. And that doesn't have to take a month or 6 months to do. It could be done in a week. Once the district council's law, the law is amended to reflect that procedure.
And you give them governmental assistance for them to if they need to have some sort of maybe even loosely working constitution in terms of how the order of business should transpire or whatever. You give them assistance in that regard. You may want to produce some sort of document, some kind of guidance notes for them in terms of how to conduct their business. Because remember, again, and we're not saying this, they said it in the discussions and in the legislation that they're advisory only. So they're only advising. It's not advise and consent. It is advisory only.
And even though the chairman, Henry, wanted to have elected district councils, the delegates wanted it to be advisory only. Mm-hmm. And so, like you said, all it takes is someone to draft the procedure of the minutes of the meetings, how the meetings could be conducted, how voting in the meeting should be carried on, and so forth. That doesn't take, because you can get them from anywhere, and you can reform them to suit the environment in which we're talking about, which is Cayman.
Yeah, but the important thing is to remove the political influence from the appointments, and as long as you allow the leader of government and the leader of the opposition
and the governor
to appoint the majority of members, then it all becomes political. So we may as well name it then political advisory district councils.
Yes.
We've opened up the phone lines. We have one caller. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
O.C.
Morning, sir.
Morning.
How are you?
Good morning.
Doctor.
Good morning.
Morning. I was listening a little bit there. I was one of those that were pushing so hard for district council. You remember that?
Yes, I do.
I was a member of West Bay Action Committee, and we made it abundantly clear we needed to advise government what to do, or ask them or advise them, and not for them to sit with us and tell us what to do. Anyhow, they finally, when McKeever was in charge, he finally got something good at the church hall. I would say they called it the meeting, and we didn't do exactly what you were suggesting it should be done, Dr. Steve, but we did have nominations from the floor, and I was nominated and I accepted. And we had one meeting, and then we had a second one, and never had it one since. I believe that because they wouldn't get no funding, they need a little office, and they need this and that. We didn't get no funding, so 2 meetings in the district council, Westford District Council, were dismantled. So that's my point on that. But we really need it. And it's a disgrace for it to sit in the constitution all of these years, and government never brought it forward. You all have a blessed day.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, caller, for that. We have another caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Good morning, caller. No other caller. So, Dr. Markfield, again, it is quite obvious.
Yes.
Oh, there is a caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Wilsey, and good morning, Mr. Steve McPhail.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, I said we had before anybody started talking about district councils in West Bay. There was a group there we called the West Bay Action Committee. We were doing things. We were negotiating with. We had police attending. We had representatives from government attending in the meetings. And when that, I don't remember that year, but when the election came around, they decided that they were going to have district councils, and we weren't. They didn't want us to be a part of it, obviously, because they appointed. I forget how many people it was that they appointed. I think they didn't have one meeting. Then it was scrapped, and that was it. And in recent election, last election, they was talking about district council again. I think it was Bernie Bush that said he had started a thing down in West Bay with his little constitution. But you see I'm not sure how politics work, you know. People were thinking this thing with this breaking up of West Bay and the breaking up of Georgetown and these small committees of communities, the people would have a better chance of doing what they divided. What they did was to divide the district. Now each little voting constituency has their own little group now, which is easier to control than the whole of West Bay. And so this is what has happened to us. OC and Steve, Steve, I'm not telling them. I'm saddened to see what's going on in Cayman, and nobody seems to care. And I'm going to mention a couple of things right now, and then I can leave. But you take for instance, I went through Georgetown the other day, went stopped into going up to the library, couldn't find a parking space. I see a guy there with one of them mobile car washes. It doesn't have a name on it. There's nothing. It says it's a car wash. But he was looking very suspicious to me, and I stopped and I looked and I waited and see where he was going. And sure enough, he comes out with this thing and he wants to start in the car. So I asked the guy right over and I said to him, I said, do you have a license to do this? And he said, yeah. I said, well, where's your license? And he got all excited. He said, and then he didn't want to talk no more. And he wasn't a Caymanian, by the way. And he closed up the car and left. Mm-hmm. It says to me that they got a ton of these operations. They got the food services that does the same thing. I don't know how many of them are legitimate, but they come here and from different places and they do these things, and we don't seem to care. What's happening to us, O.C. and Steve? We're letting people come here and do what they want. Yesterday I was down by another place and I see this guy there, and I said to somebody, I bet he doesn't have a license to operate. And the guy went out and asked the guy, and the guy was all excited. He again disappeared because he didn't have nothing on his car or anything like that. What I'm saying, gentlemen, is this: we must take control of Cayman once and for all. We can't let people come here and just do what they want, because we live in good enough, but God forbid, gentlemen, if you see a recession, and I'm maybe Trump in office, I'm afraid we're going to have a recession or we're going to have a second or third world war or something. And if you see that happen, and Cayman is stuck with the number of people that we have now in this island, and I don't know if government has on reserve the funds to for these expats to repatriate to wherever they come from. But I hope they do, because
that's the responsibility of the employer.
Yeah, but the government should say, the employer, when you come in here, you give us in our hand that money that can repatriate.
That used to be done, caller, but that's not done away with. It is explicit in the legislation now that the employer is responsible for any costs associated with repatriation.
If he's broke, then we're in trouble, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Caller, I want to thank you very much there. We have to go to a commercial break. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
Since March 2004, West Bay Pharmacy has kept their doors open to the local communities, even before, during, and after Hurricane Ivan. At West Bay Pharmacy, our staff provides so much more than pharmaceutical excellence. From the moment you walk through our doors to completing your cash out, our staff will have put your healthcare concerns at ease. We would like to take this moment to thank our loyal friends and customers. To us at West Bay Pharmacy, our patients are our primary concern. We provide thorough background checks and precise calculations to ensure your medical safety. Thank you for being a part of our family and for choosing West Bay Pharmacy, where we care about your health.
They say cleaning your house never killed anyone, but why take chances? Spend your time doing what you love and leave the rest to Roper's Janitorial. Complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential with 24-hour emergency service. Roper's Janitorial, 949-2511. Email janitorial@ropers.ky. Take back your life and get the job done right the first time. Roper's Janitorial, 949-2511.
Support our port, support our tourism.
Did you know Georgetown's revitalization goes hand in hand with a new cruise terminal? The project will create jobs and entrepreneurial opportunities for Caymanians, and Georgetown will once again be a hub for visitors and locals alike, a capital we can all enjoy. Learn more and spread the word.
Support our port, support our tourism.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. My pleasure to have in the studio with me this morning Dr. Steve McPhail. We've been talking about advisory district councils and the verbatim minutes of the discussions held in the Cayman Islands and in London in 2009. Before we go there, though, one of our listeners has written in and said, "Good morning, Mr. Connor. While I am not in agreement with the cry of corruption one of your callers made this morning, I do believe that yesterday's rain was an eye-opener about the usability of the newly refurbished airport. The rain prevented passengers deboarding, passenger pickup, and even the use of the ticket system exiting the parking area. I see this as an opportunity for adjustments. If what is being reported is the case, and we see it on social media and anywhere, it needs more. It's more than an opportunity for adjustments. It's an opportunity to review what has taken place, and maybe the Auditor General's office should be involved in this and look to see whether or not we actually got value for money, and also to look to see who is now responsible for correcting these deficiencies, whether or not that responsibility is contractually placed and legally placed on the company that did the work there as well. Any comments on that, Doc? You were a member of the airport authority.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I think it goes far deeper than just what happened yesterday. It seems to me that when we are faced with decision-making based on plans, based on projections, based on the best options, we do not take them. The master development plan that came to us in 2002.
Come a little closer to the mic, Doc.
The master development plan that came to us in 2002 clearly stated that was not the best place to keep the airport. That the airport should be moved east, higher ground, and more space to expand. 3 sites were selected by the master planners. One of the sites is where Shelley Hospital is now.
Okay.
And there were 2 other sites in that general area between Frank Sound and East End. The estimated amount for building a new airport would have been $200 million. That was even putting the roads that we have now in. But because there was not going to be any roads to those properties. So the roads would have been like maybe 20 or 30 million out of that. The option was to renovate the airport where it is, repair it where it is, and the planners told us then that it would only last us 10 to 14, 15 years, and that we have to remodel it again because of the because what we are in now, we're only in the airline service, but when we get into the airlines business, that we're going to need a larger airport, a bigger airport. We didn't do it. And why we didn't do that is because it seems to me, as a member of the board, that if things cannot be done in a minister's time that he has, they will not do it. Because every minister wants their name to be on the building to say it was done in their administration, a plaque, and that they were the ones who opened it.
Empire Building.
If we had moved the airport, then we would have a great modern airport that we could continue building forever. Because it would be something like 200 acres of land that was owned by the government at the time. But we didn't do so. So we opted for a quick fix. And if you looked at what happened to the airport in 2004 at Hurricane Ivan, we know that the flooding not only came from the rain, but the flooding came from the rise of the tide in the airport. The whole west of the airport was flooded up to when I came into Georgetown that Monday afternoon, the water was at least 4 feet deep until it reached where Cricket Square is now. So it would have been a good time to decide we are going to build a new airport. We're going to use this one now as a convenience until the new one is open. That land that the airport is on could have been sold or could have been leased to developers to expand Georgetown. This was not done. It doesn't matter how much they spend on that airport, it's going to get flooded when rain comes because it's one of the low parts of the country. Remember now what Gerard said when he came here. When he came, he said they were the place where the airport was built. They were walking in mud.
Yes.
They were walking in mud, and now they have a runway landing airplanes. So what did that tell you? That is one of the worst place to have built an airport. When we had the chance to move it, we should have moved the airport. So it's not the builder's fault, so to speak. Maybe there were some discrepancies.
In the roof, yes, in the roof. Yeah.
But that is not the fault. And so when people call in and talk about the Honorable Moses Connors and people like that, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the place that we selected to continue the airport to be. Mm-hmm. And as long as we have large rains and as long as we have hurricanes, the airport will be flooded with water.
Mm-hmm. Two of the things that Commissioner Gerard said, he said while he came by air when he arrived here, he also landed by sea.
That's right.
Because there was a seaplane that was used, so he flew in by air, but then came by sea. And he remarked that he was honored that the then Ben Ross,
his good friend,
who operated the boat, had actually shaved his beard on the occasion of his arrival in the Cayman Islands as well.
Yes. So that's the problem we have. We have a problem with long-range planning, and we have a problem with listening to people who are experts in these things, and we should have moved the airport long time ago. We would not have this mess now. If we had moved the airport, we would have a good modern airport now, and we have been in the airlines business instead of being in the airline service. And that's the problem we're going to have. I don't think it has anything to do with the Honorable Moses Connor or any of those people in government. It has to do with the decision-making to keep the airport there in such a place where it can be flooded and will be flooded when we have large rains and when we have storms.
Okay. One of our listeners has written and said, even children recognize it is in their own self-interest to fight against government's failure to protect their future. It is sad that a party we helped to establish, which is now part of government, it was established to defend our islands against the greed of destructive, out-of-control development. This government has become the main ally of that greed, has become the enemy. So this person has extremely strong feelings in that regard. And I think that's in response also to comment to an article on Cayman News Service in relation to young environmentalists awarded for their green efforts, as well. We're going to take a commercial break now. When we return, Dr. Macfield, we're going to go on to talk about standards in public life, Commission for Standards in Public Life, and the discussion during the constitutional negotiations in relation to that as well, because that is another area that is wanting in the Cayman Islands, and we are hoping that it will all be corrected soon. Folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
I have various items coming from different suppliers that I need to ship to Cayman. Do you offer consolidation?
Yes. Seaboard Marine offers consolidation for full and less than container loads. We can hold your packages at our Miami warehouse until everything arrives and ship it all in one go. And we have the best rates to Grand Cayman. Visit seaboardmarine.com for more information.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
2019 marks 100 years of junior achievement worldwide. Junior achievement in Cayman is now 29 years old. To celebrate and support this milestone, help Junior Achievement Cayman to continue our work guiding next generation Cayman to new horizons in life and business. Get your ticket and enter to win an exclusive trip Namibia, known as a smile on the face of Africa, offering a unique blend of amazing desert scenes, exquisite wildlife, and fascinating tribal cultures.
Get an adventure of a lifetime while supporting Junior Achievement.
Purchase your ticket and stand a chance to win an exclusive all-inclusive 16-day tour to Namibia for 2 persons. Namibia can be reached from the Cayman Islands with Delta Airlines flights via Atlanta and Johannesburg. Experience the astounding and desolate dunescapes of South Namibia, the amazing endangered wildlife of the Etosha National Park. Purchase your ticket today. Junior Achievement, another Rotary Central inspiration project.
Sometimes things just don't go as planned. That's why you need Contractors All Risk Insurance from Fidelity Insurance Brokers. Ensure you're covered in the event of property damage and third-party injury or damage claims during your construction projects. And with Fidelity Insurance Brokers, you can be sure you are getting competitive pricing and superior customer service. Call us today for a free quote. Fidelity, we're good for you. Radio Cayman 11 a.m. News Headlines is brought to you by Savannah Pharmacy.
Savannah Pharmacy, just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays.
Stay updated with the very latest news from Cayman, the region, and around the world. The 11 o'clock headlines, brought to you by
Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We're going to close the phone lines off briefly again so that we can go through our empowerment, enlightenment, educational process here on For the Record. Dr. McPhee, let's look at Commission for Standards in Public Life.
Yeah, Mr. For the Record, one of the things that played a vital part of the discussions in London was proposal number 18, which was establishing a commission of standards in public life. And this is it. And the discussion was opened by Mr. Ian Hendry from the FCO, who was the chairman of the constitutional delegation. He said, I suggest we proceed to proposal 18, establish a commission for standards in public life. And then the Honorable Mikiva Bush quickly said, OBE said, Mr. Chairman, I hope you're going to come back to these points I raised. And then Mr. Henry said, do you mean the last ones just before the break? And then, yes. And then Mikiva Bush said, not necessarily. And then the chairman said, Mr. Henry said, no. Okay. This is expressed in the working document in section 105 on page 66. At first sight, I don't see any problem with it. Certainly we have no objection to the principle, and it seems to me to be expressed in a very, very reasonable way. I think we had one suggestion, and I am not sure that it's in there already, and that is the remit of this commission might usually include codes of conduct for members of statutory boards in order to broaden it slightly, and it's not clear to me whether statutory boards are within its remit at the moment, but perhaps we can point out. And then the Honourable Alden McLaughlin said, sorry, sir, to a limited extent. And then the chairman, Mr. Henry, said, yeah. And then Mr. McLaughlin said, to review and establish procedures for appointing members of public bodies on the terms of their appointment, but not, I think, the actual conduct. And then the chairman said, Mr. Hendrick, I mean, is there a value? It doesn't have to be stated in the Constitution because, again, this could be supplanted by a legislation. But, and then Mr. McLaughlin said, it's an easy fix. And then Mr. Hendrick said, yeah. And then Mr. McLaughlin said, at least drafting wise, because if you look at 8B, which speaks to monitoring standards of ethical conduct in Parliament. The cabinet on the part of public officials and civil servants, we could simply insert. And then Mr. Hendricks said, recommending codes of conduct. And then Mr. McLaughlin said, yeah. And then Mr. Hendricks said, it's all part of the piece, isn't it? And Mr. McLaughlin said, yeah. And then Mr. Hendricks said, okay, any other comments on this point, Sam? And then the Honorable Sam Bulgin said, he was the Honorable Sam Bulgin, the Attorney General for the Cayman Islands, said, Minister, just help us. How does this sit with the first day draft? Well, not the draft, the anti-corruption law that is about to be ruled on shortly. And secondly, in respect of the current, where applicable, public service management law and the codes of conduct, are they in addition to supplementary? And Honorable Mr. McLaughlin said, Mr. Chairman, through you, sir, the Commission would have the anti-corruption law is a law. There it creates criminal offences as a result of, unethical conduct in some instances. And the public service management law obviously just governs the public service. The Commission, as we envisage it, and as we have drafted it, doesn't have any powers to sanction. It may investigate, it may write reports, and they get laid on the table of the House, and whatever action then follows will follow, whether it's picked up by the police or by prosecution or whatever the case may be. It's a matter of those agencies. We don't propose to invest in this with any of those sorts of functions. And then Mr. Kirk Tibbett said, Mr. Chair, through you. And then Mr. Hendricks said, yeah. And then Mr. Kirk Tibbett said, Mr. AG, in that light, do you see any difficulties? And Mr. Bulgin said, no, as well as provided it is a reporting body to the minister, quite rightly explained. I wasn't quite sure exactly how. And then Mr. Kirk Tibbett says, what was envisaged? He asked a question. And then Mr. Sam Bulgin said, yeah. And then Mr. Kirk Tibbett went on to say, yeah, well, if you look at 8G, that really is what happens when everything else is done, which is to report regularly to the Parliament. And then Mr. Bulgin says, okay. And then Mr. Kirk Tibbett went on to say, on its activities. And then Mr. Bulgin said, all right. Because you see, what I was looking for was something that says specifically that whenever it complies a report and makes a finding, then that should be reported to Parliament as opposed to reporting every 6 months. We seem to be sort of a report as to whether anything happens or not, as opposed to reporting on particular transgressions for that matter. And then Mr. Kirk Tibbett went on to say, to report to Parliament at regular intervals and not less than every 6 months. And then Mr. Bulgin said, right. And then Mr. Alden McLaughlin said, Mr. Chairman, I don't think we'll have any objections to strengthening their sort of reporting protocol in the way the AG requests. What we were careful not to do, and we had long debates, when I say debates lasting months about how this commission should be structured and what it should be entitled to do. And we came around to the view, having taken into consideration the 2 points the AG raised about the anti-corruption law and the public service management law and various other things, that the last thing we needed was another agency capable of prosecuting, or prosecuting is probably the wrong expression, but able to sanction behavior. That's the last thing we need. What we need is a commission specific to public officials and elected members to make sure that everybody is doing what they're supposed to do and to report regularly. We believe that just the existence of this commission will have a positive impact on the conduct of public officials. Mm-hmm. And then Mr. Bulgin said, well, I appreciate that. I also appreciate that these are just sort of basic framework to be improved upon as we go along. But in the same vein, if you look at the penultimate paragraph, which is F8 to F1, I think it is. And then Mr. Kirby said, to draft laws. And then the Honorable Sambudgeon says, that's in effect what you were getting at, which would be something that is covered under the anti-corruption law. So there need to be some sort of reconciling of all. That's the point in making it. And then Mr. Hendry said, I mean, it seems to me that on this, the way I read it anyway, in that regard, I mean to draft laws might not be quite the right word, but to make recommendations. And Mr. Alden McLaughlin then went on to say, recommendation, yes, yeah. And then Mr. Henry said, to make legislation or something like that. And Mr. McLaughlin said, yeah. And then the chairman said, because in the end, it'll be for the legislature to pass or not to pass. And no doubt it will go through the AG's chambers to make sure that there is coherence and so on. And then Mr. Kirk Tibbet says, we could perhaps say to recommend legislation. And then Mr. Henry say, okay. And then Mr. Alden McLaughlin said, Mr. Chair. And then Mr. Hendricks said, yes. And Mr. McLaughlin said, on that particular point, I've just been reminded by my colleague here that I think what we intend was to draft codes as opposed to laws, codes of conduct as opposed to laws. And Mr. Hendricks said, oh, I see, under F. And Mr. McLaughlin said, yes. And Mr. Hendricks said, on that, that will probably be yes. And on that point, in F, I noticed that public officials now, when we come to look tomorrow morning at the Bill of Rights draft, the public officials has to get a special definition for the purpose of that bill. But what do you mean here? Do you mean public officers as defined later on, i.e. a member of the public service? Or do you mean statistical bodies or something like that as well? I mean, it's partly related to the point I raised earlier about statutory bodies. And then Professor Joel said, I think that's a very fair question. I think probably that, as I understand it, what was meant was the broadest definition possible. And then Mr. Hendricks said, okay. And then Professor Joel went on to say, in this context, because this sort of, and then the chairman said, I mean, and then Professor said, standard ought to be applied to as many as possible. And then Mr. Hendricks said, should one try and use general language such as, and Mr. Professor said, yes. And the chairman said, the minister, public authority, or public officers. And Professor George said, yes. And then Mr. Hendrick went on to say, do you get actually the ministers, the collective bodies, and then the individuals? And Professor George said, yes. And the chairman then said, public officers, which is a very broad term, of course, but F is talking about individual human beings. Okay, that's very helpful. And then Mr. Alden McLaughlin said, we wouldn't want to leave out the opposition, or we wouldn't want to feel left out. To the language employed needs to be broad enough to include non-ministerial members of the legislature. And then the governor said, Mr. Chairman, and then Mr. Henry said, yep, sorry, Governor. And then the governor said, there is at the end of this working document a series of definitions which still contains one or two things, I think, which are left over from earlier drafts, such as references to the Civil Service Commission. And Mr. Hendricks says, yes. And then the governor said, but there is a definition of public officers and public office. And Mr. Hendricks said, yes. And then the governor said, and I think that refers to an office of emolument in the public service. And I would have thought that was limiting rather than broadening the definition. And then Mr. Kirk says, but you mean somebody who's paid by the Civil Service, Governor? And the governor says, well, that's how I interpret these words. And Mr. Kirk says, right. But the fact that is, as we just discussed, it would go beyond that. And then the governor said, the point I am making is that at some point somebody is going to get around to looking at those definitions. And Mr. Kirk says, no, I take. And then the governor says, and there will be need to be some tidying up. And Mr. Kirk Tibbetts then says, right. And I take your point too, but I am just saying it would go broader than once it's possible. And then Professor Jeffrey Howell said, and the words at the bottom of section 113 on page 71 indicate that interpretation section generally needs considerable review. And then Mr. Henry said, right, well, it is a thing, we'll have to look at a later stage when we know what else is there. But I mean, it is important that some of the customary definitions in the Constitution, such as public office, public officer, and public service, which is central because they refer to so many times, are done correctly, and the right people are included within them, and the wrong people are not included. Yes? And indeed, I see public officials pops up at the bottom of page 67, but we can sort this out. My understanding is that you want to give the broadest possible scope covering all parts of the public life, really. Mm-hmm. And then McKeever Bush said, everything. And the chairman said, and not be limited, and that's fine.
Okay, that's very good. We're going to take a commercial break. Now what we're going to do, you've heard the discussions there. We're going to look and see now what we have in our Constitution in relation to Commission for Standards in Public Life, Section 117 of the Cayman Islands Constitution Order 2009. Please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
Wow, it seems I buy a battery every year.
Oh, for real? You should buy your car battery from Vantman. Their batteries are tough. I have a 3-year warranty on mine.
Oh, I know that trick. I take it back and they charge me a percentage of the price.
Hear me out, bro. Not at Vamp Bobo. You can get a 3-year full warranty, no charge. And if they install it at Vamp, it includes free towing and jumping service. And let me tell you, you will never have to get your hands dirty changing no battery.
Get Motorcraft Max or Plus battery for 20% off when it's installed by the service department at Vamp Motors on Walker's Road. Now that's a deal you can get charged up about. Vamp Motors, keeping you on the road.
Extended through June.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on insuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
2019 marks 100 years of junior achievement worldwide. Junior achievement in Cayman is now 29 years old. To celebrate and support this milestone, help Junior Achievement Cayman to continue our work guiding next generation Cayman to new horizons in life and business. Get your ticket and enter to win an exclusive trip, Namibia, known as a smile on the face of Africa, offering a unique blend of amazing desert scenes, exquisite wildlife, and fascinating tribal cultures.
Get an adventure of a lifetime while supporting Junior Achievement.
Purchase your ticket and stand a chance to win an exclusive all-inclusive 16-day tour to Namibia for 2 persons. Namibia can be reached from the Cayman Islands with Delta Airlines flights via Atlanta and Johannesburg. Experience the astounding and desolate dunescapes of South Namibia, the amazing endangered wildlife of the Etosha National Park. Purchase your ticket today. Junior Achievement, another Rotary Central inspiration project.
Radio Cayman's premier health show,
For the Health of It, with Tara Bush,
is brought to you on Saturdays at 9:30 a.m. and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on 89.9 and 93.9 FM. Proudly brought to you by the Cayman Islands Civil Service Association. For more information on how you can become a member or the benefits of the CICSA, please visit www.cicsa.ky. For your convenience, the CICSA offices are open on Mondays from 9 to 12 p.m. and Thursdays from 1 to 4 p.m.
For the Health of It, with Tara Bush.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matter. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We're on the last leg of the show this morning with Dr. Steve McPhail. We've closed the phone lines out, closed them off, and we're going to now look at Section 117 of the Constitution, Commission for Standard in Public Life. You heard Dr. McPhail read verbatim from the constitutional negotiations in 2009. So Section 117 says that there shall be in and for the Cayman Islands a commission for standards in public life, referred to in this section as the Commission. It goes on to talk about the composition of the Commission, which would be a chairman and not less than two or more than and not more than four other members who would be appointed by the governor, acting after consultation with the premier and the leader of the opposition. And notice here, it is acting after consultation with, not acting on the advice of. So all he has to do is consult with them in terms of who he's going to appoint. But even if they were to make recommendations, he doesn't necessarily have to follow those recommendations.
Right.
So it's taken out of the hands of the politicians altogether if that is followed. So it goes on to speak about the membership. And then Dr. Macfield, further on, it lays out what the functions of the commission shall be.
Yes.
A, to assist in the setting of the highest standards of integrity and competence in public life in order to ensure the prevention of corruption or conflicts of interest, to monitor standards of ethical conduct in the legislative assembly, the cabinet, and the public, the part of public authorities and public officers, to supervise the operation of registers of interest, and to investigate breaches of established standards. Investigate only, he says.
Yes.
Investigate, right? To review and establish procedures for awarding public contracts, to review and establish procedures for appointing members of public authorities and the terms of their appointment, to recommend codes of conduct to prevent any minister, public authority, or public officer employing their power for any personal benefit or advantage, and to recommend legislation to provide appropriate sanctions. So that recommending legislation to provide appropriate sanctions is the only place where we see anything about legislation in this section. To support the Legislative Assembly at regular intervals and at least every 6 months, and to report to the Legislative Assembly at regular intervals and at least every 6 months, and to exercise such other functions as may be prescribed by a law enacted by the legislature. So any other functions that they want to...
mean? If you want to enlarge these functions, then you pass a law.
Right.
But you don't need a law to have these functions now to be in place.
Because they're
spelled out
in the Constitution.
They're already in place in the Constitution.
Yes.
So what does that mean, Orrett?
That they should be properly functioning at this point in time, and any legislation would be any additional functions that the legislature wants
That's not
to
here.
Place upon them.
But we don't
isn't
need
here.
a law to put these functions into place now.
Precisely.
Because they're already in the Constitution.
Yes.
So it means then that once the governor appoints the commission, the commission should go on and go his business. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And get on about his business. They don't have to sit around waiting out till the legislature to pass a law, because Section 119 doesn't speak about a law that has to be passed in order for these functions to come alive. Mm-hmm. They're already alive in the Constitution.
Yep. And it says this section C that talks about their ability to investigate breaches of established standards. And of course, if they find breaches of it, then they would look to whatever legislation is there for them to either report it to the relevant authorities for the actions to be appropriate action to be taken.
As what was discussed in the constitutional delegation, the discussions in London. You remember that was discussed?
Yes.
And it was clear to say that they would give that information to the relevant body, whether it was the anti-corruption body law or anti-corruption. That was the contribution of the Attorney General. Mm-hmm.
So there's no reason for the Commission for Standards in Public Life not to be fully functioning at this point in time, because it's all laid out in there. Now, as far as advisory district councils are concerned, all of that is in our Constitution. in relation to that is Section 119 that says, subject to this Constitution, a law enacted by the legislature shall provide for the establishment, functions, and jurisdiction of councils for each electoral district to operate as advisory bodies to the elected members of the Legislative Assembly. And we know that what the UK delegation wanted in that was that fact that they should be elected. And so that was
yes,
knocked down by both sides of the Cayman Islands delegations.
And for Mr. Record, what then should happen? The law should be passed to establish the functions of the district councils, and it should say that the district council should be elected by the members of the district. That's all it needs to be, but it's still advisory.
Yes, still advisory.
Still advisory.
And that does not encroach upon the powers of any elected member of the Legislative Assembly, exactly. since that is what they fear.
Since that is what they fear. So how can that be done? You want to elect the district council for, say, Georgetown South. You call a meeting at the Civic Center and where is it in South Sound, and you have nominations. You have secondment, and you have people who are willing to serve, and they can be elected one evening for the district councils, and they could get on. And all you would need to the law would say where they would have their meetings and how long, how regular they should meet, and probably a stipend, some funds to be able to carry out their functions and so forth as district council, as an advisory council.
Right. Now, how does this stand against a person or people who are opposed to elected members of the advisory district councils, but yet at the same time put strong arguments forward for the establishment of bicameral legislature with an unelected Senate.
Yes.
But an unelected Senate that has powers, because in most Senates they can hold up legislation that is passed in the lower house. They can at least hold it up, stall it for a given period of time. They can't eventually thwart the government from getting its legislation through, but can certainly thwart it simply because they're
holding it up
and hold it up.
Delaying it.
So how can someone argue for that, but at the same time don't want members of an advisory district council to be elected, and all they're going to be doing is advising
them?
And they, unless you put in the legislation that their advice has to be taken, has to be followed through on.
Yes.
It is only advisory.
It's advisory.
You can either ignore it, or you can accept it, or you can amend what they have advised and move forward with it.
But you remember Major Donald? When he came, he set up an advisory district. He set up an advisory council.
It was an advisory executive council. Yes, that's what.
And they were elected.
Yes,
they were all elected.
They were all elected. They were all advisory to him.
To him.
Yeah.
And so, let's go further. Let's go further from your proposition, and say not only a senator the Senate can hold up legislation by bluffing and pretending that they're looking at it when you're not, but they can also take people from the Senate and make ministers.
Yes.
Without being elected.
Yes. Yeah, you could do that if you put it in your constitution.
Yes.
Right, yeah. Well, Doc, I think we've had a very good conversation today as well. Looking forward to next week, the 4th of July, Constitution Day, and those round table discussions that we're going to have as well. That's why we didn't really want to discuss too much here in relation to constitutions, because we're going to have some experts, including yourself, around this table for the record during the segment of the Business Buzz, and extending beyond that, as well as on Sterling Dwayne Banks' show talk today as well. Looking forward to that.
Are you going to have Dr. Mary Lawrence there?
I think she's going to be included. Yes, we're going to contact Celebrate Cayman after this after we finish here to find out where we were at with the guests who are going to be on.
That would be great.
Folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman and by extension For the Record into your homes, into your vehicles, as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. I also want to remind you that we are our brothers and our sisters keepers. There is always someone out there who's less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to extend a helping hand to them. If you can't do that, then I suggest you donate to a worthy charity, because we always want to consider those who need, not necessarily those who want or even those who crave. I say to you, have a great day. Continue to support your radio station, Radio Cayman. Join Sterling Dwayne Banks at 12:15 for Talk today. And as usual, we ask the good Lord to bless these three beautiful, wonderful Cayman Islands. And please, please, some rain for the eastern districts.
For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Cayman Pharmacy Group, with a location in West Bay and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The Cayman Pharmacy Group has a location for you just around the corner. Seaboard Marine, with over 35 shipping ports, find your shipping solution by calling 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com for competitive rates. Rotary Central, for more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects. Fidelity Bank, for all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you. And Roper's Janitorial, complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential. They get the job done right every time.
Community radio with a different appeal. The voice of the people. Security through adversity. Stuck on you. Radio for all time.
You're listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.